What's up guys, welcome back to the poker vlog. We are off to play a private game session in Springfield, hoping we can catch some cards and find a way to get our money back after playing bad and running bad our last time out. Smash that like button to help me have a bounce back night, subscribe to the channel if you're new, let's jump right into some hands. Okay guys, jumping into the hands right here, we've got King Queen offsuit, first hand of the session, we got $500 in front of us, pretty decent table that we're sitting down at. One well-known, I'll go ahead and say pro player at the table, normally isn't in this game, normally is out of town, but he's in town for this one. We're going to go ahead and raise it up here with our King Queen over all these limpers. We end up seeing two calls eventually. Not super excited about who we're going against. We're going against an old nit sitting on our left, and we're going against the super active pro that I mentioned across the table from us. So, flop comes down, a pretty mediocre one for us. It's 8-6-5. I go ahead and lead out anyway, betting on $35. The under the gun player folds, the player to my immediate left, and the player at the end of the table, the pro, makes the call. Turn comes down to 4 diamonds. I end up checking, kind of giving up a little bit, but expecting him to barrel pretty often when he senses any sort of weakness. He bets $40, and I decide to go ahead and float here, hoping to either hit something on the river or find some sort of way to navigate myself to win on this hand. River comes down, not our favorite card. It's the 3 of spades, so no help to us. Extremely connected board. I check, and this time he bets $70. So when he bets 70 bucks, I'm not really believing this too much. Not really believing this at all, if we're being completely honest. I ask him,
Okay.
is that any good?
What the fuck you wasting our time with? Put that in the mug.
I end up throwing it away. I'm not too happy with this. I definitely think I got bluffed, but can't make the call here with just king high. Next hand, I've got King Queen offsuit for middle position 1, starting this hand off with about $500. Open to 20 bucks in a straddle pot, and a very loose opponent calls me from the big blind. Off to see a flop, which comes down queen high. He checks, I bet $30, he shoves for around 130 bucks. I end up making the call. I don't think there's a whole lot of options here. This is gonna be a pretty straightforward call, especially since we're holding the king of diamonds. He says, let's run it twice. I say, that's totally fine. Both turns and rivers are diamonds, but he shows us a 7, and I end up taking it down. So didn't really need any help there. We had a stranglehold on this hand, so on to the next one. A little bit after winning that hand with king queen, we look down at king jack from the button. Starting this hand with about $650, we call early position open and see the small blind and the big blind also call. So we're off to see a flop where we flop top pair and an open-ended straight draw. Small blind and the big blind check, under the gun +1 bets 35. I call and small blind calls. Then we get some pretty weird news as the other player raises to $130. So we see the initial raiser tank fold. He thinks about it for a little bit before putting in the fold. Action ends up coming to me. I end up making the call after thinking about it for a little bit with top pair and so many outs to the nuts here. I think it's totally fine to be putting in the call against what is going to be a pretty weird looking range from our opponent here. So we're off to see a turn, which is a fantastic card for us. Turn comes down the ace of spades, so we've got the nuts here. Our opponent thinks about it for a little bit and decides to put in a pretty large size wager. He ends up putting in $170, and now it's time for me to figure out how to get him to stick the rest of the money in. Unfortunately, in this spot, I don't think he's going to be committing the rest of his stack unless he has a jack, but I decided to go ahead and give it a little bit of a think, tank it out just a hair, and we shove all in. He snap calls, and we know what he's got already. He shows jack 9, so we ended up getting pretty lucky. But we'll take this one down, go ahead and take the chop. Big hand, but ended up no real blood being shed. So, on to the next one. A little bit later on, I look down at ace-king offsuit. I 3-bet to $75 over a $20 open and someone else's $20 call, and we just get a call from the original opener. Flop comes down 9-6-4, so not great for us, all undercards, no pair. Our opponent checks. I bet out $110. He tanks for a long time and ends up folding, telling me he folded pocket tens. This seems like a super tight fold to me, showing that our image can be very variable depending on what players are actually in the game. So yeah, some well-timed aggression with ace king, I guess. I don't really expect to win hands like that in that way very often, but definitely gonna take it. Only one hand later, after having that ace king hand, I look down at ace king offsuit from middle position this time, starting the hand off about $700. Under the gun opens to 15. He's the same player who I 3-bet the hand before. He gets 2 callers. I raised up to 80 bucks, and a player who has been known to aggressively come after me for little to no reason, with little to no reason being used, shoves all in for $600. I am pumped, looking forward to fist bump getting it in. Unfortunately, the initial raiser shoves all in for even more. I have to make the fold in this situation, I think pretty much every time. Turns out my opponent, who gets it in against me all the time, just coming after me, had 6-5 offsuit. Yeah, pretty terrible. This guy's awful. I mentioned him before. Some of the bigger games run around this player fairly often, but the initial raiser shows pocket king, so we made a great fold, avoided a pretty tough spot, but we were really looking to win a huge pot against this guy who comes after me all the time. So, oh well, don't get to do that. At least we made the right decision. Quite a while after that, I'm looking down at 3-2 offsuit from the big blind. Yeah, we got a 3-deuce hand in here. Buckle in, things get kind of weird. There's under the gun straddle, and I'm starting this hand with about 450 bucks. There's several callers of the straddle to me. I go ahead and call for the $3 extra, and we go something like 6 ways to the flop, which comes down a pretty good one for us. Flop is 6-5-4, so we're flopping the bottom end of the straight. Action checks to me, I bet $15, and the guy who always goes after me and some unknown player who seems tight, kind of passive, both make the call. Turn comes down, one of the worst cards in the deck for us is the 7 of hearts, so now we have the very, very bottom end of a very, very connected board. I go ahead and bet out 50 anyway, don't really know if I like this, but I think it could be okay. And only the unknown player calls, so not really sure what he's gonna have here. A lot of 2 pairs, I think he would definitely raise if he had an 8 here. So we're off to see a river, which comes down the ace of diamonds. I bet out $75, and then we get some very weird news when he shoves all in for $275 total. Not really sure what he's gonna be doing with this. It's a fairly unknown player. I've only seen him in the game like once or twice. I tank for a long time, and eventually I make the call. Well, he looks at his cards, then looks at the board, and looks at his cards, and looks at the board some more. Seems like he can't figure out what he has. I'm getting real nervous that he's gonna table his hand and end up having a straight or something that beats me somehow. But eventually, he puts in the muck. He just throws him away. So thank God we win this hand somehow. Not really sure what he is ripping it there with that we're beating. I don't think that's a call. I think it's a pretty bad call unless I was getting some sort of read off this guy. But take it down, not gonna complain about a winner, tell you that. A good while after that super weird hand with 3-deuce offsuit, we look down at Jack 9 of diamonds from the button, starting this hand with about 650 bucks. I called $10 pre-flop, and we end up going 4 ways to a flop with the players that have been playing all the hands. Flop comes down, an interesting one for us. It's king, queen, queen, but with the king and queen of diamonds. So we've got a gut shot, straight flush draw. Action ends up checking to a later position player who bets $35, and me and the other player that's in this pot make the call. So we're going 3 ways to a turn, which is a bingo turn for us. It is the 6 of diamonds. So now we've got the flush, feeling pretty good. Action checks to me, and I bet $55. I don't think this is enough. I think I need to ramp it up and bet a lot here. Yeah, big yikes. I don't. That is pretty unfortunate. River comes down, a terrible card for us. River is the 6 of spades. My opponent bets $110. Not sure what I'm thinking here. I end up tanking for quite a while, building up this idea in my head that he is trying to bluff me and making the call. He is not trying to bluff me, shocker of the century. He's got queen 10 offsuit, so we lose this one. Not feeling very good about how we played that hand. That was a travesty. Just terrible. On to the weirdest hand of the night. I look down at pocket kings from middle position 1, starting the hand off with about $550. Under the gun plus 1 opens to 20 bucks. I'm gonna go ahead and raise it up. I make it $75, and one of our favorite players in the game makes the call, and the button calls also from under the gun. So we're going against the under the gun plus 1 player and the button. Off to see a flop, which comes down a pretty disgusting one for us. It is ace 5-3 with 2 spades. We do not have the king of spades, so everything about this is bad. Weird part is the action checks through, so pretty weird. Turn comes down the 9 of spades, so it immediately completes the front door flush draw, and the action checks through again. So not really sure what's going on here. We're off to see a river which comes down to the 4 of hearts. Now our opponent from the button, once the action gets to him, bets out $200. I tank for a while, trying to figure out what's going on. Eventually the guy who is constantly coming after me and trying to be super confrontational, I think that's just who he is as a person. I don't know, super gross guy. He calls the clock on me. We tank for a little bit longer, end up making the call, thinking that our opponent, one of our favorite players in the game, is making a move against us, and he sure enough did make a move. He flips over pocket aces. Yeah, he flatted pocket aces against us pre-flop. Huge cooler. He was gonna get all my money. He ended up not getting quite all of it. But yeah, pocket aces against pocket kings, and we're on the short end of this stick. Super weird. I mean, he could not have really played the hand any better after the flop, just checking it down and making us think that we are ahead with our pocket kings. But yeah, lose that one. It's a pretty big one, pretty annoying. Yeah, not what we were looking for tonight.
Well guys, obviously not the session we were looking for. Not super happy with how we played or how we ran. Time to buckle down, do a little studying, and see if we can find a way to piece things back together. Hit that like button if you made it this far, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's episode. Thanks for watching. See you again Monday with another poker vlog.